Hello you, and hello you too. Today, did you see what I did there? Today on YouTooSpain Live, we're going to reveal the truth. The truth about moving to Spain. Is it difficult? Does it cost twice as much? Is the bureaucracy really as bad as it's made out to be? And lots of other myths and truths and questions. I'll be joined shortly on the virtual settee by the virtual pool by our very good friend and residency specialist, Chris from Upsticks.es, to answer all of your questions and reveal the truth behind all of those myths and rumours you hear from the bloke in the pub and on social media. So stick around and we'll give you the information you need. First of all then, just gather round, give us a wave, hit the like button and have your questions ready, or just relax and enjoy the chat. Welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's start with our small but perfectly formed cosmic theme tune. Here it comes. Let's dance. Groovy, baby. It's getting all that's getting all wobbly, that theme tune. I must re-record it and get it put back in. There we go. Before we begin, don't forget to make a note of our website, YouTooSpain.com, where you can find lots of resources, specialists and links that you need for your move to Spain and for living here. There's a free newsletter at the beginning of every month. That's just going out today. So I think you're a bit late unless you sign up in the next couple of hours, then you won't get it this month. But sign up anyway. Doesn't cost you a penny, by the way. If you use the partner links on the website and in the video description below here, it helps YouTooSpain without costing you a cent. There we go. This is what we say. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. That's one of our t-shirts, by the way. And for the first time ever, I'm wearing the It Depends t-shirt. This is mine. And I'll show you what it says on the back as well in a little bit of time. So, without further ado, let's meet our lovely guest for the day. It's Chris from Upsticks. Hola, Chris.
Morning. Hola, how you doing?
Morning. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yep, we're all good.
I seem to have a black background today. What's happened to that? Let's see if I can get the purple one back. There it is. That's much nicer. That goes with the shirt. So, let's see what... I'm going to show everybody the back of this shirt because I really like this. It's one of the only ones that's at the moment that has a design on it, and it's huge. It's got the big YouTooSpain on the back of it. I look like I'm part of some American sports team or something like that with this one because it's got the arms. There you go. It's all written on the arms as well. You're talking about getting a wraparound one for Upsticks as well, aren't you?
Yeah, awesome. I was trying. It's actually quite hard because a lot of the printers only keep it in the box, don't they, at the front? So I was like, well, can't we just have the Upsticks wrap around? Because that's like a funky T-shirt. I'm not too sure how cool that'd look in the police station if we're doing an appointment, but
yeah. Mind you, I wonder if they'd like this. Maybe I should do it in Spanish as well. So that's just depende.
Depende. Yeah, that'd be quite good.
Yeah,
I went to an appointment yesterday wearing this, and the lady was quite confident. I went to an NIE with a poder and just went in my went in my T-shirt and trousers, and he was like, oh, that's cool. So
brilliant. Have you got any shout outs before I say hello to everybody on the chat?
Yeah, got a couple. So there's I know a family watches this show, Mrs. Allen. She did an appointment in Edinburgh this week, and obviously when things change, as they constantly do in the non-lucrative visa world, like now with the BLS office now running the appointments, we've got a glowing report back. So we're asking the clients to give us a sort of a full report, and that was good. It's always worrying when people are going in for these early new appointments, but that was good. It seemed to be working well. And just another shout out for another client of ours, Mr. Johnson, who got his visa last year, going through the renewal now, and just had his car pass the ITV. So
excellent,
sort of full package.
Brilliant. So we've got on the live chat, Jack D. We're going to answer your question, Jack, shortly, that you wrote down. It must have been about 45 minutes before we went on the air, but I've got that printed on the screen. Chris Lambert, good morning. They're in a caravan in Mumby, Lincolnshire. Looking forward to always another cracking show with you guys. Can't wait. Lovely. Mafmoors is on. Hola a todos. Drizzly in Brighton, sunny in my heart. I tell you what, there's another t-shirt for you. Drizzly in Brighton, sunny in your heart. Good morning, everyone from Bev. We're gonna be meeting Bev for a meal soon, so one day we'll get that organised. John McClue, he's hand pink waving. It says on there. That's supposed to be an emoji, but it only ever writes it what you've written there. So anyway, morning, Simon Saxophone. Nice name. Hi from Janet Stanton. Math has one thing I've heard. That's the sort of thing that comes up on social media. Something I've heard. Good. We'll answer that one in a moment, Math. And Ant is there from France. Hola, Skatz, Chris and Liz. Yes. Hola, Liz, my wife, if she's watching. And Chris Lambert says, peas and fluff, everyone. Yes, indeed. That's one of the T-shirts. And Merle Ellen Philp. That's a good name. Merle Helen Philp. Hello, everyone. Yes, hello. That's a new name for our live chat. Welcome. So, and yeah, we're talking about T-shirts and designs. We're going to be giving away an Upsticks T-shirt today to the person who asks the best question or makes the best comment on the live chat. So get chatting and leave loads and loads and loads of comments today, and I'll try and pick up on the best one. We'll keep an eye out. If you've asked a question on social media, on Facebook, we'll answer those about halfway through the show. But for now, let's get straight on with the myths. Shall we? Let's do maths first, and then we'll get on to Jack's in a second. Math says, one thing I've heard was that it's impossible to rent a place in Spain if you're on a non-lucrative visa and do not have evidence of wages.
Oh, that's it again. This is one
of the.
It depends. Yeah, no, but it is a problem. It's been a huge problem, even more so now with changing the laws with the rentals here in Spain. So they're basically there's been some big changes, but the changes have made it even less interesting for agents to actually rent the property out because they can't charge certain commissions and stuff like that. So the first thing is obviously when you're trying to arrange a rental from abroad. So if you in the process of doing a non-lucrative visa, you've got to depend on an agent this end. It was hard before they changed the law because, because doing it remotely, you could talk to an agent and they're not interested unless you're here now to go in because the market's like that at the moment. There's no, if you're saying to me, I'm coming in November, they're like, talk to me in November then. Yeah. Now, in terms of the income, if you're lucky enough to find a place, it really depends then on the person who is renting the property. So the agent acts as the go-between, really. So if you have got, for example, money in the bank in Spain, or you can prove that you've got a pension or something like that, and that person who the owner of the property is happy to accept that, then that's fine. So it really is down to them. So we recently had a client of ours who had to put down quite a hefty deposit, which is actually against the new laws. They did a private deal. I'm not too sure how much the laws restrict you doing a private deal to be able to retain a property, but that was happened. So it really is dependent on the owner if they'll accept your income, or if you're using savings, whether you can get it or not.
A lot on the time of year, definitely. You wouldn't get one in the summer. I very much doubt it, unless it's a property that's kind of just come on the market. Because it's just been made ready, they've just finished the painting and suddenly it's on the market when everybody's booked up. But there you go.
It's quite important to say because I had this conversation yesterday evening with an estate agent, believe it or not. So we're always saying, look, it's great to do discovery trips. I don't believe that rental money for the first year is lost money because it's part of your, getting your feet into the table. You'd probably recuperate that if you were buying a property by being here, and striking a deal. We always tell people that, but you try and get a rental property, it's hard work.
Yeah, definitely. Liz says hi to everyone. That's Liz on YouTube aromatherapy and yoga. She's just off to Nerja to meet a client with Oscar, our son. So she's just hopping on for a minute. So hello, have a safe drive. And you can get free yoga, by the way, on YouTube aromatherapy and yoga YouTube channel. If you want some free yoga classes, there's loads of them on there, and it suits everybody. If you're old and infirm and you want to do it sitting on a chair, then Liz's yoga channel is perfect for that, and for everyone else as well. And Anthony and Kerry say hello to Liz. Matt says he'll be doing Airbnb for the first month to look for a place to rent in person, so I can get an address for the TIE. Yeah, that's the way we did it. It took us a month of living in Granada province before we found this place in Malaga province, and yeah, we got it sorted out. We moved in October, so easier than moving here in July, definitely.
Yeah, the only thing, if you're on an NLV, the only thing you have to be aware about then is when you just speak to whoever's going to be helping on the second point on which you've got it. So places like Malaga and Alicante City, you can actually just go and register without a padron. Other places, they're insistent on a padron, and that dictates when you can actually go and register your visa and how quick you need to get a rental.
It depends. There you go. This t-shirt's going to come in very handy. So let's go back to Jack's question. He's an American living in Madrid. Howdy. I shouldn't say howdy to all Americans. That's just Texans, isn't it? I applied for the first renewal of my NLV 2 months ago. I'm now past my visa valid date. My renewal is still en tramite, in process. Any suggestions, Chris?
Yeah, so if you ask, you've got 2 months before the visa expires and 3 months afterwards to actually submit your renewal application. So you can actually submit up to 89 days after the expiry. So I'm not too sure how far after the expiry he is, but normally what you'll find is, we've found this is sometimes we've done it a month before, and they've taken 4 months to be released, but they don't normally go over the 90 days after the expiry of the visa. So of your TIE card. So if you're within that 90-day period after the expiry of your TIE card, then just wait. If it's gone over those 90 days, there's actually a government platform where you can send a message, and they call it an incident message. It's called an incidencia. And you have to go on the government. I can send you the link, Skatz, actually. Remind me, and I will do. Okay. You can send this incidencia. You basically send them a message, and it goes on an open platform, and it gives you a code that you've sent them a message. So in the event that something happens and it stays in tramite forever, you've always got that proof that before the 90 days you sent that message and you've tried to action it. The norm is that it comes out 90 days after the expiry of the TIE card. But what we've found is they really push it to the back end, so it's can be quite frustrating, and even more so Madrid, which is absolutely stacked. Everything takes a long time in Madrid.
There you go. Hopefully it doesn't go through into August, because there's fewer members of staff there then. I hope that answers your question, Jack, for now. Just hang on and be brave. Can you get a piece of paper or something, proof that you've applied, just in case somebody asks?
Yeah, so there's a few bits. So if you've applied in person at the office, in the immigration office, they should have given you something there to say you've applied. It's not always the best idea to do that, because then they'll post you out the letter to say you've been approved, or a letter to ask for more documents if you've got rubbish post, and that could be a problem. If you've done it on the government Mercurio system, then the moment you submit, then you get a document called a justificante, and that proves that your application is in. One thing for people who are doing it themselves with digital certificates is the Mercurio platform is actually pretty rubbish. Sometimes when you go to download the PDF, it just doesn't give you it, or it says error. So what you need to do on those instances is take a screenshot of that, because that proves that it's giving you an error. And then you can also download the model EX01 at the end of the process with a date stamp on it as well. So all of that proves that it's in process. You can go on the government website. If he's checking there, Jack, you're checking that it says in tramite, you can actually download that PDF as well, and it'll be date stamped showing that you're still in tramite.
Perfecto. Okay then, so let's get straight on with exploding some myths that we've got here. This show isn't going to be all about British people, but I did speak to a group of Brits the other day here in Spain. Most of them were non-residents, but there were a few who'd been here since before Brexit, and the majority of them, and a good deal of the comments that I've read on expat groups about moving to Spain, seem to be wallowing in a swamp of myths. So let's start with a really big one. It's almost impossible to move to Spain now from Britain, and Brits have been leaving in their droves. What do you say to that, Chris?
Well, the first part, it's almost impossible to move to Spain. Well, we know it's a lot more difficult, but it's certainly not impossible, is it? So we know that. We know it's in some circumstances for people who don't have the required funds, it is impossible because it's different, but it's not impossible. No, there's many people. I mean, if you speak to anybody who works in our industry, everybody is absolutely flat out. And there's also a lot of people now looking at 2024, 2025. So, yeah, it's not impossible. And what was it? And leaving in their droves. No, well, as far as I've seen, no. You know, there's certainly more people coming and leaving, and you know, this goes back to the withdrawal agreement, doesn't it? We're talking about Brits. The withdrawal agreement, we just see. I can't remember what the figures were, but it was just incredible the amount of people who actually declared their situation for the withdrawal agreement and stayed, and people who came in during, right at the back end of the withdrawal agreement to meet that deadline.
Yes. So I'd particularly like to answer one troll who's been discussing with me the finer points of Brits leaving, and how many people. He's been basically asking me the same question on lots of posts every time I talk about non-lucrative visas and Brexit or anything to do with that. He's basically saying, I've emailed the British Embassy in Madrid on 2 occasions and requesting the official figures of the number of people coming in on an NLV. So he says, in the place I'm living, I've asked around, nobody's come in on the NLV. So I don't know where he's probably sitting in the corner of a pub going, anybody on the NLV? No, nobody's coming in on the NLV. Anyway. And so he keeps arguing the point. It doesn't matter how much I say the argument that you've just said, the number of appointments. He said, no, there's no official figures. But I'd just like to put these figures up on screen. He says there's only 1,800 British citizens have emigrated to Spain since the introduction of the NLV, which is quite completely wrong. This graph shows the statistics. It's the annual number of people from the United Kingdom residing in Spain. These are from the official statistics figures of those people who've got residency. Now, I don't know if you can see the bottom of it. It's right at the bottom where the important figures are. I'm just going to go into there. Oh, a little bit too far. The bottom 3 lines, as you can see, 2020, 21 and 22. And there were 300,000 at the beginning of 2020 when COVID started. If you can see before that, the years leading up to that, funnily enough, since the announcement of Brexit, since the vote in 2016, there was a drop-off in the figures. And the figures were kind of varied from before that. But since then, and of course there was COVID in the middle of it, but actually during COVID, the figures went up from 2020 to 2021 by 13,000.
Withdrawal agreement as well there.
Yeah, absolutely. And people registering. And then there's 315,824 there, 2022. That's only the beginning of 2022. The figures for 2023 haven't come out yet. But basically that's more than 1,800. And of course, that's the figures of people becoming resident minus the people who've left as well. So there's actually a lot more than that. And we were just working out before the show started the number of people who apply in the consulates in the UK for non-lucrative visas. There's about 20 appointments a day in the London consulate. So let's
just check that now, didn't we?
Yeah. So let's do the sums on this one. I've got my little calculator on screen that you can't see. I don't know if I can get it on screen actually. Yeah, let's do this properly. Screen share, where has it gone? There it is. Brilliant. There, let's do this properly. So 20 appointments in London. Let's assume that there's 20 appointments in all 3 of the consulates per day. So that's 60 per day. Multiply that by how many days in the year are they open? Maybe 350? Maybe slightly less.
Business day, yeah. Good question.
Let's say 340, just in case. We'll underestimate and multiply that by 2 for the number of years. That's 40,800 applications for non-lucrative visas. There's going to be some that are refused, presumably. But that's just the non-lucrative visa applications. The troll who was arguing with me was saying, "Oh no, a lot of those people, coming in on working visas and self-employment visas and golden visas, those are really like a minimum numbers. You're only talking in the hundreds, really, of those kind of applications, successful applications, anyway, from what I know." So there you go. That's the number of people applying. We don't know exactly how many are getting through.
Why would the British Embassy share information with anybody about what they know on their NLV applicants anyway? I don't know. They wouldn't. If you imagine sitting in the embassy, you get a random email going, "I want to know how many people have applied for this." It's going to go, no. I mean,
yeah, they're not going to answer that, especially if he writes with the same. I know you can't tell the tone of voice from writing, although you can when it's a troll writing. I've noticed. But
I mean, it's one, and if they know, I mean, obviously this is a Spanish immigration government application, so how much they share to the British Embassy regarding the citizens which are actually coming here, yeah, I'm sure they do share that sort of information. Who knows? But I do know that unless you actually go and declare yourself, so we had to do this when we got married. So we had to get this document called a bajo consular, which means we go to the consulate and we tell them we are now living in Spain. You know, we've got a certificate which we then use to prove all the authorities to the registry to get married. So I don't even know what sort of access they'd have to that information. I'm sure they would. But...
Yeah, I mean, I looked at statistics on online, and there are several statistics sites which quote these numbers, and they've all got the same numbers from somewhere. So again, statistics, famously, you can read into them quite a lot. But it's obvious that there are lots and lots and lots. Just because you're one of the residency specialists, and there are loads of companies, there are loads of lawyers who are helping people to come across all of the time. And you can't ignore those figures.
Anybody, they're busy at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Well, I hope that answers the question, Mr. Anonymous Troll, but I'm sure it won't. I'm sure you'll ask exactly the same thing again in a few weeks' time. There we go. And I'll just answer happily and make jokes out of it. So there we go. So the truth is, it's not impossible. Just takes a bit more paperwork and organisation and funds. Let's see. Oh yeah, I've just a quick myth to explode about YouTube. Actually, this is not about residency, but somebody asked me the other day. Oh, I was really worried. I've never subscribed to anything on YouTube because I'm expecting to pay something. You don't pay for subscribing to a YouTube channel like YouTooSpain or Upsticks or any. Subscribing doesn't mean paying for anything in this particular sense. It's completely free. It just means you get to see the titles of each of our new videos when they're released. It's like being a member of the club. You can click on the picture and watch the video or not. It's your choice. Subscribing just tells YouTube that this is a channel you want to watch, so you don't miss out on the videos. Okay, that's one I just want to make clear near the start of here. So subscribe and click on the bell. Whenever I say that, people go, no, I'm not paying for you. But yeah, but you can pay as well if you want. Anyway, so here's another myth. The pubs that used to be full all the time are empty because Spain doesn't want Brits here anymore. What do you say to that?
No, I mean, definitely not. I mean, again, you talk to anybody at the moment, everybody seems to be busy. Yesterday I was yesterday evening I was at a networking summer do, and everybody was talking about what a good year they're having. So that's certainly not the case. I mean, I've got to be honest, I don't frequent that many British bars. That's the honest truth. So I couldn't tell you really what's going on in there. We do have a local Spanish-Irish bar that's always busy, but it's full of Spaniards because it's in our local town. But yeah, I don't know if they're talking about the London pub in Fingarola or something like that. I couldn't tell you that.
It's possible that because of the 9180 rule and the swallows not being able to be there all year round, or for the big 6 months over the winter, that there's been a bit of an impact on that, but I don't think that. And I mean, COVID has had a bit of an impact on businesses as well. So, but I think they've, as far as I can tell, it's recovering now a lot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had COVID. Remember, you've got to remember that we're only in the first year we can start judging things now, because we had withdrawal agreement, COVID, Brexit, all mixed in together. So it was a bit of a crazy couple of years. Then we went straight into NLVs, which if you the first year the concerts didn't even open till March. So we were there trying to work out what was happening. So you can forget 2021,
Yeah.
so really this is the first sort of year where everything's, I won't say settled down, but it never settles down, but we're seeing some degree of normality, and people are now getting used to the process of applying and stuff like that, whereas we've had 2 years of madness. It's been hard to judge.
Yeah, and I hear this all the time. Spain doesn't want Brits here anymore. For a start, Spain isn't a person.
Yes,
As
yeah,
far as I can tell, Spanish people very welcoming to lots of nationalities, including Brits, and I've not experienced any kind of hatred. I mean, there's bound to be some nationalists who don't like any foreigners, but and maybe in some of the British enclaves where there are noisy, drunken Brits on holiday, there might be some dissatisfaction going on. But no, I think everybody's quite laid back here, aren't they?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, it's hard to say, within the whole of Spain, what the reaction is to what Brits is Spain. No, I mean, that might happen because one person goes to a bar and maybe gets a bit of a snotty waiter or something, because that waiter's probably done 12 hours on his feet and it's 12 o'clock at night and you're happy having a beer, he just wants to go home. You never know that. That's not a
Yeah,
true reflection on the fact that, that Spain doesn't want Brits here anymore. No, I
no.
mean, in my sort of social group, most of my friends are Spanish. I've been here for a long time. I live in a Spanish, predominantly Spanish town, and my kids go to school here. Now, most of the people in our social group were just a bit confused about Brexit. I was like, why do you want to leave? I don't get
Mm.
it. It was more like it's confusing. It's going to make it difficult, but I can't say as I've seen any sort of movement towards we don't want Brits here anymore.
No, absolutely. Math says, I've heard you can't get Yorkshire puddings on a Sunday anywhere in Spain. Well, that's rubbish. There's a pub down the
Oh,
road you can get it from. In fact, there's
yeah.
probably two restaurants in Compito which do Sunday dinner, proper Sunday dinner for, I say proper Sunday dinner, an English Sunday dinner. And yeah, and there's a big kind of pub just outside of Compito which does, it's famous for having Brits in there, and they do the big all day Sunday dinner.
Yeah, I mean, again, you may not get it in the middle of Madrid, but if you're going to come down to the coast, I mean, we've got a carvery. I think there's two carveries down here. Where there's an Iceland that sells frozen ones because I can't make them. So it
Yeah,
definitely they definitely can get Yorkshire puddings.
yeah, absolutely. But I've not had them while I've been here, I don't think. Anyway, we've got questions on the chat there. Jason, hello, Jason. Didn't say hello when you arrived. If I arrive on the non-lucrative, let's put it up. If I arrive on the non-lucrative visa after year one, I get a job and change to the work visa. If I lose or leave the job, for example, after 6 months, what happens then? Do I get a time limit to get another job work visa, or does that work
Yeah,
visa still
I mean,
apply?
again, as we don't do the renewals onto work visas, but you would have to maintain your circumstance of work, and you couldn't have any time where you weren't working. That's our understanding. Um, One thing about that is, I always say this all the time. We get asked this a lot. I say, unfortunately, we don't do the NLV to job switch, but it was hard work to get a job before Brexit. When Brits, if we're talking about a Brit who's on an NLV,
Mhm.
um, because the Spanish employment laws are really quite tough on the employer, and they've just got
Mhm.
tough. Okay, so all contracts now are permanent. It's a lot of liability on the employers. So before Brexit and before the tightening of employment laws, it was hard to get a job for a Brit. Now, if you're going to switch onto that platform, you have to have an employer who's prepared to go to extremely long length paperwork hassle and take you on as a liability. we'll say liability, but take on the liability of having you as an employee and supporting you during your visa, it could be tough. So, that first year, building that kind of relationship up with an employer, I don't know, it could be a fact that it's hard. It wasn't easy before. And,
he's saying, as an example, 1 year on the NLV, then 18 months work visa. Do I move back to the NLV if I lose a job? And does the 18 months count towards my 5 years? That's presumably if you're applying for the permanent residency afterwards. I think that's what you're referring to. But that's the time that you're resident in Spain, so that would still count.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think your temporary residency period would count. Who knows if you lost your job after 18 months? I've never done that before, so we wouldn't know. This I assume you can't just switch straight back onto a non-lucrative if you lose your job. But I couldn't give you the proper answer to that, I'm afraid.
That's a tricky one. He says it could move now. I could move now, but I'd run out of money as I'm only 50 and can't take pensions yet. Another 10 years to wait. I see you're thinking ahead a great deal there. Yes, difficult to say, and I mean it's going to be a couple of years' time before you get to that anyway, and employment laws might change again.
It's a huge risk if you come on NLV with a pretense of getting a job at the end of 12 months, and you can't afford to continue on the NLV. It's quite a big risk because getting a job's tough.
Yeah. John McClue says, once I get my ACRO and doctor certificate back from the apostille and I have my 12 months health insurance in place, is that us ready for our appointment at the Spanish consulate in Edinburgh?
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Once you've got your ACRO, you've got your 12 months. Obviously, remember the 12 months health insurance doesn't have to start. It could be paid for. Okay, so you can pay for and have a start date which post-dates your appointment at the consulate, because then you take into account the application period in Edinburgh. So it might take a month to 6 weeks for them to get the visa out, so you can post-date the start of the health insurance, which is always good to know.
There we go. Math is asking, are there people who provide relocation services to help people find rentals when they arrive on their NLV? We'll be looking for help in Catalonia using Facebook groups, etc. There's nothing better than having your feet on the ground and speaking to the agents themselves. We called into several estate agents in different local areas. We'll be talking about finding properties. Actually, we're talking next week about finding properties to buy, but definitely it's some of the same rules apply to when you're finding rental property. You need to speak to the locals.
Yeah, I mean, there is here. I know one specialist who actually in Malaga does it and deals with like school registrations and stuff. That's but it's very hard. I wouldn't know in Catalonia, to be honest. As you say, there's nothing better than having your feet on the ground. I mean, the biggest problem with rentals, we've recently had a client who came over from South Africa, and it was impossible for them to get anything on. Like, they found somewhere in the middle of Granada in the end. But the moment they were here and literally got a car and went around knocking on doors, they found one, believe it or not, in Alarin de la Torre. Okay, and it was literally, that was just going in, knocking on doors, because it's so buoyant, the rental market. The moment that there's a house goes on, within the first hour, on Idealista and all these places, there are people, inquiring, and then they go. Not the norm is, and I spoke to the estate agent here, is they go from inquiry 1, inquiry 2, and just work their way down. All right, which is, they don't even do pre-qualification like with finances, which is a bit stupid, to be honest, in my opinion. But what does seem to work, if you walk in there and go, I've got this money, this is my proof, this is my ID, this is what I want, and you're literally there telling them we're ready to go, then you might be able to jump that queue, because they can go, right, agent, property owner, there you go, commission, next job.
Good answer. There's an interesting question from Merle. Would you recommend Valencia for a single black mum, taking the current political shift into account? It's an interesting question. There's been a lot of nationalism rising, and there were more nationalists from the Vox party who got in the local elections, weren't there, Chris?
Yeah, there was. There was actually. I mean, Valencia is a very cosmopolitan town, you know, and it's I can't see, you know, it's one of those. It's a really difficult question to answer because what you want to say, yeah, it's fine, come over, and then the first time you come up against some, you know, form of racism or something, you know, it is quite tough, you know, to sort of answer that correctly. But look, I think political shift in terms of Vox and stuff is more maybe focused on immigration and a more of a platform of people coming over from who don't have much money and taking from the state, rather than people who are coming here and investing in Spain. So on that, I don't think it's as much as a racial thing, rather than they just don't want immigrants who might have to depend on Spain for the, you know, the first year or something like that, or whatever, you know. So I think that political shift is with that. But yeah, I mean, look, here in Malaga, you know, it's very cosmopolitan. It's a cosmopolitan town. You know, my best friend is Jamaican. You know, we're out together. You know, and he gets loads of respect in his town. You know, but so it's,
Yeah, I've not seen any particular racism. I mean, let's face it, I'm a white bloke talking about racism, and maybe I'm not in the right position to do that. But I've not heard from any people of colour in Competa who are having a problem with it. I don't suppose you do up in the mountains. Generally speaking, I've found that Spanish people are very, very relaxed, and I've not seen the evidence of people having problems there.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. You made a point there. You said obviously you're a white guy and you may not come across that. I mean, we've got kids at school and here, and our school is a public school and it's predominantly Spanish. There's only very few foreign kids there, and at times it annoys me because they identify my kid as Rubio. They go, "Hey, Rubio, ¿qué pasa?" I'm like, please don't identify him as different to the rest of the kids, because, you know, it really affects my son. He hates that, you know. So you know, but it's not a malice. It's not, they're not being racist, you know. It's just the fact that here, believe it or not, they have like nicknames for people. So you got a Sparky. I used to know an electrician who was Sparky. We used to call him Bombi. I was like, why'd you call him Bombi? It was his from light bulb, Bombilla. That was his apodo, you know. And so yeah, unfortunately, you know, it does. There are certain points where we went to the market to buy some fish, and the first thing the lady said behind the counter was, where you're from, because you're Spanish and great, but he looks like he's Swedish. To my kid, I was like, Jesus, I'm born over there, man, you know. So those kind of things do happen, and it does, but it's part of the culture, it's part of your integration. You know, we make a joke out of it, whereas my daughter, who's got crazy blonde hair, she works every single situation to her advantage when they identify her as being different, you know. So but it does happen. I'm not going to lie. We deal with it as a family here sometimes. It's not racism, but there is a slight identification that they are different.
Yeah, on a similar subject, we have quite a few gay couples, gay men in the area. A lot of them own B&Bs, and they're all very, very good B&Bs, really high class. And at least one of them is black from America, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of prejudice against him.
No.
And
The
that's
contrary with gay communities here on the coast. I mean, I've been involved. We've got a lot of gay clients. I've got a gay family who, and in the community, and there's places like El Muñeca and stuff like that, and never ever have I come across, you know, any sort of problems or anything like that, you know, contrary to it.
There you go. She has another question. Thanks for that, Mel. Looking to come on an NLV. Do I need to apply for a different visa for my 3-year-old child who will be attending school?
No, the child comes basically as a dependent on an NLV as well.
There you go.
The only thing you have to do is, depending on the parental situation, if one parent's coming and the other parent's not, there may be some extra documentation to do.
Excellent. Hope that answers your question. And Jason says, in answer to his previous question, I couldn't afford to work at 60, but working would help with lifestyle. Yeah, this is again, you're planning ahead there. It might be difficult to get a job at 60.
Yeah, it could be not knowing the language as well. I mean, that's one thing. You know, the problem is if you don't know what I was trying to say is if you don't know Spanish, then what you're doing is even if you do know Spanish, you're in a Spanish workplace, and your qualifications might not be now, because the UK is outside of the EU, valid here in Spain. You might not be able to homologate them in Spain. That's if you know Spanish and you've got qualifications, you're still fighting in the Spanish workplace. Now, if you only can speak English, then you're limited to maybe expat communities, expat jobs, and people who give you a job in that sort of area, which limits you even more. So yeah, it could be tough.
There we go. We'll answer a question from Alison, which has already been answered by Bev, because she's an Irish citizen. Thank you for that, Bev, but we'll just explain it on here. Hi, we're Irish citizens and have a house in Spain. We have NIE numbers. We have Spanish bank account. We're in our late 50s and want to retire there soon. How easy will it be to get our visa? You don't need a visa because you are an EU citizen. So there you go. You can just rock up, and yeah, you do need to register as a resident. That's if you're coming for more than 90 days. But yeah, you're perfectly fine.
And great news. I mean, if they're in Malaga, they don't even have to prove any form of income if they're in a property. Having a property is enough for an EU citizen.
Brilliant. So move to Malaga, and then come on out. We'll join you for a meal. Here we go. I'm just asking everybody now. Sorry,
we'll have
Bev.
we'll have a bigger Christmas party this year.
Yeah, sorry, Bev, you won your meal. That's you're not going to feel special anymore because we're just inviting everybody. But no, we're paying for you though, Bev. That's different. There you go. Oh, somebody has finally asked the question, and we thought you might be in your garden being filmed this week. Well, there's a long story there, and I'll fill you in on an email, and kind of didn't work out, and for lots and lots of reasons, but basically lack of communication and organisation. And I'm quite an organised person. I like to be organised in advance, but they weren't. So, and also the gig that I was supposed to be doing this evening, that's been pulled because of ill health to do with the person who runs the venue. So yeah, sorry about that, but it's a good show anyway. So Alison says that'll be brill, but do we need to get a full resident visa to live there full time? No, the difference between a visa and a residency here, this is often a confusion. A visa is something that you need as a non-EU resident to actually go over to register for residency in the first place. So you don't need a visa, but you need full residency to live there full time. Is that right, Chris?
That's right. The difference between, as we always say, permission, and EU citizens already have the permission. Non-EUs have to ask for the permission first to get that permission on whatever platform it is, and then register that to get their residency. So whereas an EU citizen already has permission to be here, they just have to register.
Brilliant. Bev says, I am special. You are. Of course you are. And Mel says, thank you very much for answering the question. That is an absolute pleasure. I'll definitely get your information. Yes, of course. Upsticks.es is the one to go for your getting your residency, all of that stuff. Anthony says that's your loss. There we go. And let's do a couple more quick questions, and then we'll go to the halfway break. You've not got to get off as quick today, have you, Chris?
No, I'm afraid. I'm literally I'm playing. I had a couple of days off this week on a camping trip, so I'm this weekend. I'm afraid it's an office weekend playing catch up. It's on me.
There we go. So we'll just talk, so you don't have to do any work,
Yeah.
unless you call this work. There we go.
The qualifying sprint race does start at 11:30. I just
Well, let's get to another myth. Spain has put up the amount you need to get a visa in revenge for Brexit.
No, I'm afraid it's always been the same in terms of its relationship to IPREM, which you've got fantastic video on, haven't you? So it's just the fact that now applies to Brits, and ETIAS has been put up due to the economic situation, really, in the world, let alone Spain, because that is also a base for what people get paid certain things on in Spain. So the fact that ETIAS has gone up was definitely not out of revenge. It's just a byproduct of what's happening in the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't always go up every year. There's some years, 3 or 4 years in a row, wasn't it? Not long ago when it stayed the same.
Yeah, no, it stayed the same. I mean, look, see what happens in the elections, and then we'll know whether it's going to go up next year. But it did take a bit of a hike last year. But in the sort of the overall, I'll be honest, if the hike, if it stopped you coming on an NLV, you probably might not have had enough money anyway. So if it went up a grand or so, then it will go up. It definitely wasn't out of revenge or anything like that. It's always been like that for Americans, for example.
Absolutely, yes. So, yes, the non-EU rules, they were already there. As lots of people keep saying on Facebook, it's Britain's fault, not Spain. It's nothing to do with Spain. It's just that the rules are there for non-EU, and Britain decided not to be in the EU anymore, so the rules changed, and that's why you need visas, and that's why you need to follow the amounts that you need to live as specified by the non-EU visa rules. So that's it, and it's a lot higher than what you actually need to live, because that's another argument that goes on. I know Spanish people, and they can live on a lot less than that. Well, of course they can, but that's not where they set the limit. They set it so that there's not a huge influx of people who are only just living above poverty level. Nobody wants that, and especially with the political situation, none of the parties that are slightly right or even more than right of centre are going to say, yeah, let's have more immigrants coming in who can only just survive, and then prices go up, and then they don't survive, and they ask us for social security money, and that's what lots of people don't like, and they get scared into thinking they don't like it, so that's why they don't like immigrants. That's my little summary in a nutshell. There we go. Math says, will ETIAS go up this January? We'll find out after the election, I guess, but normally they don't announce it until just before, do they?
Yeah, no, you find out before. I think it may go up. I don't think it'll go up as much as it did last year, but it could do. The economy is still a lot of inflation. So.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it stayed the same, because at the moment it's 600 a month.
Yeah, they rounded it
figure.
up nicely.
That's so nice. Yeah, don't have to use a calculator anymore. So yeah. So here's a good one. This is to do with ETIAS and the amount you need for a visa. A lot of people say it costs £26,000 each to get a visa, and twice as much as that after the first year, which is all a little bit confused, because for a start, don't calculate it in pounds, because the exchange rates change every few seconds. So it's no point in thinking about it as pounds. Think about it in euros, and think about the ETIAS as in months rather than years. Don't think about it as an annual amount, because I think it's more complicated to work out what this twice as much means when you go for a renewal.
Yeah, it's don't think you're absolutely right. Don't think of it in pounds. Look, if you don't quite meet the minimum required amount should we say, what we would say is if the pounds amount in a bank account, for example, if you're using savings, meets what's required in euros, that's quite an easy thing for an agent at doing the appointment to look at and go, oh yeah, that's like for like. Okay, they're not going to take into account the exchange rate. If you can't meet that, then evidently you have to take proof of, hang on a minute, I've got 35k that actually meets the 36k, but this is the exchange rate today. Then it's down to their interpretation whether you can afford it or not. That's the problem.
And they've got their own exchange rate that they use, I think, on any particular day in the consulates when they're looking at it. There's kind of an official exchange rate that they use, something like that. I've heard that mentioned. There you go. That's something I've heard on the internet. I don't know how true it is. I've
heard that. I honestly haven't heard that. I always tell people, look, take it anyway with you. Just to you can. So you can write what they call, when you've done this many times, an escrito. An escrito is an explanation of what you're presenting. So if you've got like a bank account with your wedge, for want of a better word, that wedge meets the minimum required amount, and then you go, there you go, there's my wedge, there's no need for an explanation. If you have, for example, we have this for renewals quite a lot. where people have 5 or 6 sources of passive income. We recently had one which was approved, where someone had seven sources of passive income. So apart from the amount of translations which we had to do, which amounted to nearly €1,000, we had to put in a letter which says, it's an escrito, to make it easy, and we always put that right at the beginning. So there you go. Please read this before, and then all the proof of the translations below. So yeah, it is doable, but if you have got a complicated structure and it's in pounds, and you need to really explain it properly.
Yeah. So the basic sum is EPREM is 600. For the applicant, you need 4 times EPREM, which is 2,400 per month.
Yeah.
You add another EPREM for each extra, not applicant, for each family member. So, for example, a couple, it would be another 600. That's 3,000 per month. There you go. So if, for example, we'll talk about I was going to have a sum that I could put up on screen, but let's go for a really basic sum. Let's say you have pensions, that's passive income of, let's make this easy. By the way, the annual figure for 600 times 4 plus an extra one for a couple would be, oh no, for a single person it's €28,800. And for a couple that would be another 6, 12, 7, I can't work it out in my head. Do you know the amount?
So couple's 36,000.
36,000. There you go. That's an easy one. So do you need 72,000 for your renewal? Well, if it's passive income, if you've got a pension for the two of you, a series of pensions that works out at 36,000 per year, then you don't have to double it, because that pension is covering a period of 24 months. So if you multiply the monthly amount by 24, you're still covering twice the amount. That's the simple thing. It's when you get onto working out if you've got some savings and passive income, that's when you have to work it out. So if, for example, you've got £20,000 worth of pension, that leaves you a shortfall of 16,000 that you need to make up in savings in year one. But for your renewal, you need to make sure you have 32,000 in the bank. So that's a basic sum for you. If you want any more examples.
Passive income is recurring and savings is not, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Math says €2,400 is £2,062 a month. It is at the moment because the exchange rate's really good, but it went down to, I don't know, it was 1.07 at one point, the exchange rate, which meant that you'd need more like £23,000. So, yeah, that's a good example of why you shouldn't do it in pounds. So, any update on the ETIAS from Jason? That's an interesting question.
No, not yet. It's supposed to come in, wasn't it, last year?
Yeah, and then this year. But I think now they're saying 2024.
No.
Yeah. So that only affects non-EU people, by the way, if anybody's thinking about that. If you're Irish, you don't have to worry about that. When renewing an LV, says Judith. Oh, hello, Judith. When renewing an LV, does owning property impact EPREM? Doesn't impact.
That's a good question, because there's no official calculation for property, but it does say when on the official guidance that you can submit proof of owning a property in there. But they don't give us if that property is worth X, it's going to cover you for X calculation, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Now, so it depends. Does it depend on the area as well?
Yeah, I mean, we have done it in the past. We had one recently where a renewal was dependent on various sources of passive income. One which actually was dividends, which is extremely hard to prove what dividends you're going to be earning over the next 2 years, as you can imagine. So, immigration don't really like that much. But we did manage to push it through with including the property as well, with an updated note, simply improving ownership. So what we can say is if you're going for an NLV initial appointment or a renewal, it's always a good idea to have an up-to-date notice simply, which you can order them online for those appointments.
Great. So normally at about halfway through the show, we go on to a short break, but we're probably more than halfway through the show at the moment, but What the hell? Let's do that short break now. We have a quick message from me and my three Walter egos, I was going to say. Walter's one of them. And about the wonderful things available to you as YouTooSpin fans. So let's mute our microphones and go to that. Here we go. Are you getting something helpful from this show? Are you enjoying YouTooSpin? Then click on the thumbs up and subscribe to YouTooSpin while you're here. And click on the bell for notifications. It's all free, but it's worth loads of money. I need coffee to keep my picker up. You can donate coffee to us all. There's a link in the video description below, or use the QR code. It'll be in the top left-hand corner of the screen after this message, sweetie. But that's not all. You can support YouTooSpin with a regular monthly amount. It's only a few quid. Oh, he's worth a lot more than that. There's a link below to Patreon, where you can find out what extra groovy things you get by helping out. Oh, I'm all a quiver. One more thing, get on with it. There's an important guest twiddling their thumbs. All right, calm down. The lovely video watcher needs this. Go on then. There are lots of other links to vital things below. Like what? Well, do you need private healthcare insurance? Yes. Do you need a visa or residency? Do you need to exchange currency? What about finding a property? Or getting tax and pensions advice? Or getting a Spanish mortgage? Or getting documents translated and apostilled? Or getting a medical certificate? Or finding a lovely little app for learning Spanish? Do you need the best mobile phone provider? Or a digital business card so you never need paper ones again? Or do you just want one of YouTooSpin's t-shirts with a slogan on it? You can even get discounts on dental treatments and get a lovely little smile like Skatz. All of those links are there, down below. If you can't find them, ask me in the comments. Is that everything, darling? I need to get my nails done. Probably not. But let's get back to the show, shall we? Back to Skatz in the studio. I wanted to say that. Oh, stop being beastly, you two. YouTooSpin. Over to you, Skatz. Thank you very much. All of my alter egos, I've still got some notes up on the screen and I can't find how to get rid of them. There we go. And if you have any questions, by the way, for Walter, Tommy and Dick, then just ask in the comments. And let's see. There's been lots of comments coming in on the live chat. Let's better do those first. Who's first then? Let's find out. Kev the Argonaut. You're back with us, Kev. It's an interesting one. If I came down to Spain with my wife and brother, is that the same person I was going to say? No, that's the sort of thing you get in Norwich. Sorry, Norwich. Could I include him on my visa application at 6K, or would he need his own individual one? By family member, do you mean dependents? Yeah. Oh, put your microphone on, Chris.
Is that better?
That's better. I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry, that was. Yeah, no, it needs his own. So Kev and his wife would be a joint application, and the brother would need to be independent.
There we go. That's a simple answer for that. Jason. Oh no, Jason says, but what about a pension pot? He's got 75k, but only 4.5k a year. 4.5k a year. That's a good amount.
If they're so pension pots, it's all about the accessibility of the pensions. If they consider it as a savings, then you can use it. Okay, so it's wrapped up so you can't get your hands on it, then probably not. When you are using a pension pot, what you need to do is get as much proof as you can from your provider, or wherever it's held, that you have access to that at any time, albeit with a penalty. You know, so it's whether they can consider a pension pot. It depends, like your t-shirt. But as savings, all right, because it essentially is savings. You know, a lot of people have different structures, but you've got to be able to.
Great stuff. Math says, do you mean owning a property in Spain as to put up as part of your money? And the answer is yes. Is it better when retired, says Robbo. Hello, Robbo. To have pension paid into a Spanish bank for the purpose of the NLV as opposed to a foreign bank?
No, if you can, it makes the person who's doing your renewal a lot easier. a lot easier for them. They look at any. So when you're doing a renewal, and what we can tell you now after over 150, I think it is that any asset in Spain, any monies in Spain, any income coming into Spain is a lot easier to prove than when you've got it abroad, and a lot less translation.
Brilliant. Okay, let's go to the Facebook questions now. Let's zip through these ones. First one is from Claire Fueling Wilkins. That's a nice name. And let's find that. There it is. Let's put it up on screen. It would be good also to talk about the consequences of living here without residency. That's a good myth to explode, isn't it? How many people are living without residency here?
Well, I mean, as evidently, if you're a third country national and you're breaking Schengen rules, then the consequences can be quite bad, if being fined or even being asked to leave if you're caught. If you're an EU citizen, evidently the consequences aren't as bad because no one's quite controlling people coming in and out. But as an EU citizen, even if you don't declare your residency, you could have fiscal consequences, for example.
Yeah, there's a lot can go wrong there. I mean, there were, I think, lots of people before Brexit living here with and famously some of them even on some of the trolls were out there on Facebook, and I've read a few saying, yeah, I'm living out in my caravan on a piece of waste ground, and having a go at the Spanish authorities for not liking that. So there's always going to be some people who are trying it on. But I think there are fewer now. I think there's been a clampdown.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was, and the authorities here gave after the withdrawal agreement. So we got a lot of warning. So it was basically when Boris Johnson decided not to extend the withdrawal agreement, and we knew what the date it was going to end. About 3 days later, that's when it was published in the Bowie what Brits were going to have to do. So they were going to have to either exchange their cards or declare their situation. That went on for around 6 months. Then we didn't quite know whether that avenue would be open for people after Brexit. It was, so people could still apply as long as they could prove, within the withdrawal agreement that they'd been here. And that first year also, when we're in the police station, we're talking about people who've been overstaying and stuff like that. They said, look, for the first year, it's not going to be as strict, but, you've had the withdrawal agreement, you've still got the first year. And if you're not sorted out by the end of that, then that's it, really.
There you go. Okay, move on to the next question, which is from... Where did question 2 go? No, we've had question 2 already. That was from the troll. So we'll go on to question 3. And this one is from Karen Everett. When can we spend some of our savings? Yes, this is all about renewals, because when you need the money for years 2 and 3, and then you need the money for your visas 4 and 5 and beyond. Yeah. So after you've got your final 4 and 5 renewal, can you just start spending the money that you've got as a block of savings in your bank account?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, when you go for your larga duración, when you look at the official requirements, if there's nothing about actually having to prove how you're going to be surviving. That said, you would, albeit, I think it'd be a good idea to keep. It's a tough one because if people have ring-fenced money for the renewal, then after you've got your year 4 and 5, you'd want to spend it, wouldn't you? And as I say, in the official requirements for the larga duración, it doesn't mention that you actually have to prove you've got a set amount of savings. Though, if they come and ask you for that, because they can do, as it depends, they do like to ask for things, and you haven't got it, then it could be a problem. So I always think it's a good idea to maintain, and also don't forget during that period up to the 5 years, you have declared that this is how you're going to maintain yourself under the non-lucrative visa. So I always think it's a good idea to keep your circumstance under the non-lucrative visa. Don't spend your savings until you get to that larga duración. Get that larga duración under your belt, and then go wild and buy a boat.
Yeah. Save the BMW for afterwards, for when you're permanent. Yeah. Okay, and the next one we have number 4, which is Anonymous. Hello, Anonymous. This is a funny one. This is replying to somebody else's post. saying you can only stay 90 days in 180 days, period. Before, there's a really good word that they say period, which means I am right and that is it, and there is no it depends. I can't agree with that at all. So you can only stay 90 days in 180 days, period, and this is where it goes completely on its head before you start paying taxes. Unfortunately, hopping to France or Portugal, no good. They're in the EU. They've got about 3 or 4 different myths and rumours that are all tangled up into a horrible web of ridiculousness there. So you can only stay 90 days in 180 days is a Schengen rule for non-EU citizens. So that's not about the amount of time that you spend in Spain with residency. You've got to, if you're in Spain, then you've got 90 days to register your residency, and then after that you should be a resident. Paying taxes is completely different. You're paying taxes once you've spent 183 days, which is 6 months or more, in Spain within a tax year, which is between January the 1st and December the 31st. This hopping to France or Portugal is all about, yes, that's another rumour and a myth, which is if you go, it's trying to get around the Schengen rule of the 90 days. They're saying, oh yeah, you can spend 90 days there and you just hop over the border into France or Portugal for a couple of days and then hop back and it resets you 90 days. Well, that's rubbish, because you've still done more than 90 days within the previous 180 days. So that doesn't count. But there's also there's the one rumour, and I don't know how true this is, but a lot of people quote it, that if you're an EU citizen, you don't want to live in Spain, but you're travelling around Europe, and you spend 90 days in Spain, you don't want to be a resident. So what you do is you pop over the border for a couple of days, stay in a hotel, get a receipt just to show that you've been out of the country, and then you pop back over the border and it resets the period where you need to get residency, and you don't need to get residency because of that. So yeah, loads of myths there. What do you say, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the biggest misunderstanding as well, and it's quite, you did that really good video on it, didn't you? Which we use quite a lot, actually, the 9180.
Cool.
And it's for people who don't really understand. Does it reset or doesn't it reset? And I always say, well, really, it doesn't reset. But I try and akin it to just having a calendar and a ruler and a linear calendar. If the ruler's 90 days, you're moving it along every day. Count how many. 180 days. And you're moving it along a day, count how many days in that ruler that you've been in Spain. It's the only way you can sort of get your head around it. But yeah, it's a very common misunderstanding that it resets.
And you've got to be careful, of course, if you're an EU citizen and you're staying and you go, right, I'll stay the 90 days. I'll go over in somewhere else in Europe for a bit, and then I'll come back. And then I've got another 90 days before I need to get residency. And before they know it, they've done that. And within a period of a year, they've spent more than 183 days in Spain. Yeah. So really, they should be a tax resident by then, fiscal resident. So it can create problems.
Yeah, and I mean, interestingly, again, going back to the withdrawal agreement, which is done, dusted and everything, but even back then, when we were declaring people's circumstances, they were asking for things like tax returns. They were like, well, we don't care that you haven't declared your residency, you declare it now, but if you have been here and you're telling us you have been here because you're declaring your status, why haven't you done a tax return?
Yes, exactly. Here we go. That's that one. Let's move on to the next one. We're getting through these nice and quick, and we'll get to you on the live chat shortly as well. So question 5. Question 5 is actually 3 questions from the same person, and I think they were from your website, Chris. From the video that you did, the preview video to this show. So we got Corgisaurus, whose name has come up 3 times. So this one I will paraphrase. Basically, he's from the US and he's moved around in the US quite a lot. So he's been able to evaluate cities as potential new homes. But he's saying when I visit Spain in a few months, he's going to make multiple trips. He doesn't have any idea how to evaluate a new place, like will it be friendly to immigrant retirees, how hard to find a tribe in the local area. How does he do that?
Oh, I mean, a good one. Evidently, social media, as you know, is a great source of information for people. I don't see as many Facebook groups as I probably should, but I was invited to one which was called Arbolaya's Chatter, I think it is, because we have a lot of clients up there, and that's a fabulous, group for that kind of thing. There's another one over there in Bafa, for example, in Granada, which I always see a lot of our clients chatting on there. And then obviously it is just your discovery trips, isn't it? I mean, it's coming over and seeing what you feel like, and really, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in the middle of nowhere? Do you want to live down on the coast, or like where you live, for example? Even for me, that was when I went up to Competa, I was quite shocked at the integration there. It was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, get your feet on the ground. You're doing the right thing. How to evaluate is make multiple trips. So
Yeah,
yeah, and
the different
ask
areas.
around. Talk to lots of people. You're American. You're used to talking to people.
Yeah, it's just it was as you say, just talk, look at your communities, depending on the community that you want. A lot of people move to the Costa del Sol because they need the support network of maybe a predominantly British expat society. Some people don't want to, and they go elsewhere.
Yeah, and as an American, maybe you already speak Spanish. I know it's the second language over there, so if you're particularly from an area where there are a lot of Spanish-speaking people, like California, New Mexico, those kind of places, then that's good. You can talk to the locals as well, and that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I was talking to an American, believe it or not, on Tuesday in Barbati. I think it was Tuesday
mhm,
or Wednesday, and they had this vision of living in Valencia because they'd seen it on YouTube. Did a road trip down to Cadiz and just went, sack off Valencia. We don't want it, and they're living very close to this like fish. It's basically a fishing village
mhm,
because they absolutely love tuna, and they're buying their mokama, which is it's like ham but dried tuna there, and
yeah,
I happened to be in the same shop as them, and obviously we spoke the same language, so you always talk because we're buying the same thing. And it's a very specialist shop, and they said their experience was that they literally were going to start in Valencia, and they've ended up in Barbati. Can't believe that they're
mm,
in Cadiz, so you never know.
yeah. That is the experience. That's the experience I had as well. Yeah, we'd heard about Computer, but we had to try loads and loads of places
And,
before we
and,
found the right one.
and going back to the sensitive subject that we touched on earlier on, it was a gay couple as well, and they said they absolutely loved it and come across no sort
Hmm.
of prejudiced in a sleepy village, which is a fisherman's town basically. So
Yeah, you might think that the more you go out into the countryside, the less accommodating they might be, but it doesn't seem that way.
no, not at all.
So, Corgisaurus again, looking at timing of retiring in Spain, he said that it's next to impossible to get private health insurance in Spain after the age of 65. Is that true?
Well, again, it depends on
It
what
depends.
yeah, it depends on your ailments. But look, there are plenty of Spanish companies who have workarounds for the products which are correct for a visa. It's more, and what Americans find as well is that thankfully it's a lot cheaper, albeit expensive for a European because we're not used to paying private healthcare, whereas
Yeah.
Americans are used to paying it. So we've had a couple of American clients where they've gone. You say it's going to be 5 grand. They don't worry, it's cheap. So,
Yeah.
500 a month for less than 500 a month for me is cheap. Is what I'm paying now in the States.
Yeah. He's also saying he's going to be spending time, he's going to either move to Portugal or Spain, and he can see spending time in both. Is that possible from a private health insurance standpoint? Well, you'd only have private health insurance in, I think, can you only do it in one country at a time? It's the country that you're resident in, I suppose. And then you'd have to have
Oh,
holiday insurance for the other one.
yeah, I mean, in terms of the application, I couldn't comment on what the requirements are for Portugal, but obviously for Spain, they require coverage in Spain. Whether you can get a policy with a company who has associates in Portugal, which is valid for residency in Spain and to cover you in Portugal if you stub your toe, I don't know. I don't think so. So as you quite rightly say, you probably need holiday insurance.
Yeah. You need to, that's one of the first things you need to check then, because you're saying I'd hate to move to one country and then be stuck there after retirement because I can't get health insurance at any price anywhere else. It's going to be difficult for them if you're not retirement age yet, and you're looking forward 5-10 years. I don't know how old you are now, but an insurance company, I'm not sure they could tell you right now if it's 5 or 10 years into the future. They won't be able to tell you whether they can or not.
So let's assume that what they're going to do is they're going to be using their tourist visa to come and look around. Well, in that case, you need a travel policy which covers you for Spain and Portugal. Once you've made your decision, well, in that same year you've made your decision, you're going to go for your visa. That's when you need to start talking to the insurance companies, either that cover Spain or cover Portugal. What we do know is that the insurance companies do update their pricing and services at the end of the year. So if there's someone's looking to come in 2024, then there's no point really looking at the health insurance until January of 2024.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if they're the same age as me, I'm 58. If you don't know what your situation is going to be at 65. You might have a change in your health. So there's no way of knowing which country is going to be the best when you get to 65. It's a difficult decision, really, but maybe you just have to move at the time and check whether the other country, mind you, that means getting another visa to change country, because you can't swap from one country to another without that. Tricky question. There we go. So one final one from Corgisaurus. Wonder what his real name is. And yeah. So it's comparing Portugal and Spain. This is a similar thing. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, tax. Well, this one we might not be able to answer. I'm not looking to live in the cheapest place. I'm more concerned with finding a tribe than cost of living. But I'm concerned about making sure I'm not going to get taxed to the point that I really can't afford to move to Portugal or Spain. I've been able to find good information on Portugal, income taxes in retirement, but it seems like all of the information in Spain is for somebody still working, including social security tax payments. Do you know of any tax calculators that work, or any other resources that are good for tax planning, which are good for US social security, state pension, 401k withdrawals, basically retirement types of income? Big question.
Yeah, I mean, on that respect, obviously we're not tax advisors, so we can't give it. But what I would say is that you need... This is a little bit like the rentals question. Depending on when you're coming to Spain, it's depending on when you're going to find a professional to speak to you about tax. So I guarantee if you need to find a tax advisor in Spain, if you send an email and propose a situation in 2026, you might find that they don't want to talk to you until 2026, because who knows what laws are going to change. You're about to go to elections regarding, tax in the next 3 years. So it's really unfortunate, because we're always saying, aren't we, the best thing you need to do is prepare as much as possible, but then there's only so much you can prepare when it comes to like rentals and income if you're not in the same fiscal year or in the same year. So I think the best advice is to start building up your network, get your contacts for when you are ready to go. You hit the button and contact your tax advisor there, your residency specialist, your estate agent, etc., etc. Great
answer. One final question then from social media. We've had such a lot this week. You can tell it's a brilliant subject. So this is one about cars. There you go. You're an expert on these, Chris. I heard, there we go, there's that phrase again. I heard that there's a simplified procedure for registering a non-EU vehicle into Spain, especially for a Ukrainian registered car. I've moved from Ukraine to Spain recently because of the war. I hope you have information on that as well. Is there a special deal for Ukrainians?
Oh, don't know. I've never done a Ukrainian car. I could find out, though. I can definitely find out. What I'll do is, I'll be honest, I didn't see this question, so I'll ask. So there was a simplified, obviously, there's a simplified residency process for Ukrainians at the moment here, and refugees of the war. So that part's been simplified. Mm-hmm. In terms of the actual process, I do know it hasn't changed. So you still have to go through the stages of getting your code for the tax for the car, etc., etc., etc. But whether the customs part has been simplified, I couldn't answer that. So I'd have to ask our agents on it.
There you go. Well, that comment is on your YouTube site, Chris, so you can answer that one on there. Yeah.
And I've never had so many comments on a video.
I know, it's brilliant, isn't it? There you go. You're taking off.
There we go. Finally.
Yes. So, Stuart Bright, let's go back to the live chat. If I should move on an NLV with a healthy bank account with no CASA owned, How does the consulate know that I'm not going to blow the whole lot on a big villa? I guess I would only be able to stay for 1 year. Well, yeah, if you didn't have enough money on your renewal, then that's what would happen, I guess.
They'd know on renewal, wouldn't they?
Yes. But go for it. You blow it on a house. No, that's bad advice. Just buy a smaller house and still have enough left over.
Or try and find a rental, but again, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Noted that this is one-star traveller Marky Mark. Hello, Marky Mark. Noted that at the campsite I normally go to in Cadiz province, that there were virtually no Brits last year. Probably the 90-day rule effect. Possibly, yeah. Maybe it was just less popular there, and they all went to. It's a bit more windy down in Cadiz, isn't it? And it's maybe people are just going for the Costa del Sol, or maybe they're just going up to Alicante way. I don't know. Don't know what happened there.
I can tell you on recent experience, at the camper van in this last week, there was a lot more Brits in Portugal. I didn't even know these things existed. So they have these special they call them areas, which are specific to camper vans. They're not campsites.
Ah.
Right. So there's a whole community, this whole network. And my friend who took us on this, well, we followed on this trip. He's like part of these groups, so it'd be really good, and they're all in English as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, so that'd be good. The camper van areas. But when we went to the first one in Portugal, in the Algarve, there was lots and lots of British camper vans.
Mm-hmm.
One of which was over 150 grand. It was a bus. You should have seen it. The guy was like, "Oh yeah, more than a house, amazing." And then we did go down to Cadiz, and we went to Los Caños de Meca, which is where the Trafalgar point, the Battle of Trafalgar was. And there was only one. I only did see one British camper van there.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's good to know. So it's a big. It depends on areas as well. And Jason again. Hello, Jason. On my recent discovery trip, spent half a day in Valencia and decided I wouldn't want to live there as it was too hectic for me. Reminded me of central London. I've not heard that said about Valencia before, but there you go. Some people like the cities more, and some people like the countryside more, and some people like little villages with white houses, and that's me. There we go. So, Paul was asking about ETIAS actually. Yeah, let's just. I think Jason's answered that. Anyway, but what goes up in January? ETIAS. So 600 a month. Yeah, ETIAS is the amount that you're supposed to have to live on. That's what's it called, Chris, in Spanish?
I'm so gonna nick if it goes up a lot. ETIAS for a blog title.
ETIAS, yeah. Nice one. So yeah, and Paul says why times 4? Well. Yeah, well, you answer that. I mean,
so times 4. Why is it times 4? Because as a non-EU citizen, so the EU. So if you imagine the EU is obviously a big party, we're in the club, all right. So Spain has certain recourse for EU citizens that it lets into its country. That's why the requirements are lower. Now, if Spain lets in lots of third country nationals, and they say to the EU, we need help because we've got these third country nationals, they're not part of the club. That's why you need money, and that's why the requirements are a lot more.
Yeah, so they multiply it. So, yes, it was saying, Paul says, okay, I found it. I'm Irish, so it's 100%, I think. Although, does it depend on different areas? There's some like 150?
Well, I mean, your general calculation is 100% plus 50% for a family member. But what you've got to remember is that, and you quite rightly said earlier on, think of it as a monthly amount. But if you're coming in on savings, then, I mean, I recently spoke to a colleague of ours in Valencia, and it was EU member, and then there's EU family members. Okay, so there's one EU person and EU family members times 4, I think it was, who were applying off the back of that, including children. Now, they had no work activity at all. They were only applying off the base of savings. Immigration got back to them and told them they wanted the full 5 years in savings because it's a 5-year residency.
Yeah.
So that can be quite a shock. So in Malaga, it depends. In Malaga, it's how the wind blows here, really. But there in Valencia, they said, right, family of 4. Okay, well, let's look at that 100% plus 3 times 50%, whatever that added up to. And then they said, if you're not working, we want to see that in the bank for the full 5 years.
Yeah, there you go. Jason says, Paul, I don't know whether that's 100% for EU is what the Spain rule is. Yeah, it is. Jason says 600 a week, I think. No, 600 a month. There you go. Glad that's cleared that lot up. Let's get to the some of the rumours and myths that we had written down before the show. Let's just quickly go through these again. We've nearly had an hour and a half. Don't want to go on for too much longer, but some of these are brilliant. But we'll rip them apart and explode them as quickly as we can. So, Spain needs the Brits for its economy. They won't survive without them. Go.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is something that you do hear quite a lot, and don't get me wrong, there are pockets of micro economies which depend on, Brits coming over and, staying. But Spain is a huge country. We have a lot of industry here, so it's not going to collapse if there's too many clients not sold.
Yeah, and there's still millions and millions of tourists coming to Spain in spite of Brexit. There's still, I think in terms of tourists, there's about 80 million, that's not just Brits, but 80 million tourists a year come to Spain. It's the most touristy country in Europe, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of different nationalities. I mean, we've seen a lot where, you see everywhere's stacked. You can't get a hotel for love nor money at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the lack of Brits, slight lack of Brits, has just been replaced by tourists from the rest of the EU who can come over when they want, really. Mm-hmm. And they probably tip better than the Brits. I'll get in trouble for saying that, but no. I used to get that in Ireland when I was doing gigs. The Irish and the British, they're not very good tippers. Certainly not compared to Americans and any other Europeans that were over there. But there you go. I'm not bitter. Here we go.
No comment. I'm not getting involved.
No. So, another myth. You can't work in Spain anymore.
Well, you can if you've got the right visa or you're an EU citizen, you can still work. So it's just a case of putting the paperwork in. As we say, it's a lot harder if you're a third country national. If you're a highly qualified professional or you're going for a work visa, you can still work, but the paperwork is obviously a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's just the non-lucrative visa that you can't work on.
Yeah.
You can't use your UK driving license anymore. There you go.
Yeah, well, as we know, UK driving license, if you're coming here on holiday and you want to rent a car, of course you can. Also, if you're here as a resident, then now we have the exchange process. So yeah, you can use it for up to 6 months, but then you've got to make sure that you start the exchange process if you're a resident in Spain.
Yeah, so you can only not use it if you've been here for longer than 6 months. It just it's not valid anymore. There you go. If you move, yeah.
It's one of those. We're looking at bringing a car from the UK to here, and it's the other way around for me because I can actually get insured to drive it on a Spanish license through the UK. Still working out what to do in France, but the moment I hit Spain, I can't drive a foreign registered vehicle, so I've got a Spanish license. So I'd have to come with an accompanied driver.
Wow. So, next myth. If you move here, you can bring your foreign car and you have 6 months to change it to Spain plates.
No. So but I can understand why people see this because it's actually written that after 6 months, that vehicle is fiscally liable to pay its import tax here in Spain, whether you like it or not. Mm. Okay, that includes special registration tax. But no, you can't drive it around for 6 months. If you're a tourist, you can come in. You can, as a tourist, you can drive your car. I had this discussion with someone the other day because you're a tourist, so you're allowed to come in as a tourist as long as your insurance permits you to. But if you're coming in to get residency, then you need to start the process virtually straight away. They do offer you these temporary plates. Now, normally it takes around a month, so we would say that you can drive for a month before you get your residency registered because you're essentially still, going through the process. You can't get your P plates until you've actually got your residency registered, so you need it for that. But once you have got your residency registered, you've got that document. Before you get your TIA card, you can order your temporary plates and you can drive around for 60 days on those while you're going through the process of registering the vehicle. You certainly can't keep it for 6 months. You can't drive it as a resident here as a foreign vehicle.
No. Great. that's all of the questions that I had. Bye, Maff. He has to go. Always so helpful. Hasta pronto. Yeah. See you next week on the live chat there. Oh, we did have some last minute questions that you emailed me. These are about cars as well. You can't buy a car if you're a non-resident.
Oh yeah, so there's just a couple of things that came up this week. So yeah, the big myth, you can't buy a car if you're non-resident. Yeah, you can. If you want to buy, say you've got property here and you're sick of hiring cars, which is, happening to a lot of people, then you can actually come here as a non-resident and buy a car. Don't be told that you have to sign on the padron either. What happened this week says somebody who's a non-resident said, the hair store's told me I have to sign on the padron if you want to buy a car. No, you don't. There are reforms you can prove your address with the traffic office, including property deeds, and like in some circumstances, we've seen people who've actually got a long-term rental contract but use the property as non-residents, so they come in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But to secure that property, they've got a long-term rental contract and they've actually bought a car, have it parked at that property. And the only thing you really need to check with that is that obviously you need an NIE number, and that NIE number has to be registered as a non-resident at the tax office, and that your insurance covers you to drive with a British license, because not all insurances do that now.
So could you bring a UK car over? I don't know if you've answered this already. If you as a tourist, you bring a UK car over, you've got a house in Spain, leave it parked there all the time on the driveway and still keep it as it. You'd have to register it.
Yeah, you'd have to register it. So you'd have to register. You can't just bring a UK car, leave it. Well, we've seen it so much in tourist spots, like Mijas, for example. If the police see a car's there for more than 3 months, then they just pick it up, take it away. So you've got to register it. So if you're planning on leaving a car in Spain, best advice, just register it. But we have a lot of people doing that, who are non-residents, come over, they register their cars and just leave them, and then use them as and when they come over.
Right. So one final myth. I'm an EU citizen, so I don't need to go through customs with my UK car. It's the status of the goods, not the person. There, yeah.
Yeah, so we've had this quite a lot now, where people think because they've got an EU, maybe an Irish passport, they're bringing a vehicle from the UK, that they doesn't have to pay tax or duty or go through customs. Unfortunately, it still does. It's the status of the good as they're coming from a non-EU country, not the person itself.
Good stuff.
And also, one of the things we had this week as well was an import agent absolutely adamant to an Irish client of ours that they had to get a TIE to be able to waive their import tax on their personal goods, because they couldn't understand that the goods were coming from the UK and this person was an EU citizen. So we had to send them the law that says what they needed, and then they came back and apologised. So if you are, a recent EU passport holder like an Irish, you've got a residency card, which is an EU one, and they suddenly start saying you need to get a TIE card, it's a misunderstanding on their behalf, not on yours.
Great stuff. So any more live chat questions, then ask them now. I just had to take out one of my earpods because they're closing down. They've been on for too long. But we'll shut down the show very shortly. While we're waiting for the time delay and any questions to come through, we said we'd give away one of your t-shirts, Chris. So,
yeah, we did. My model's gone. They came out with the t-shirt and then they've gone again.
Well, never mind. So, who shall we give the t-shirt to? Math's already gone, so...
who's done the best comment?
The best comment. Let's see. So it's either Alison Smith, who was the Irish Citizens, that question, or Merle from America, the black woman moving to Valencia. That we'd have to post that to America.
Oh, we can post it to the America. The only problem we have is if they ever end, if they charge you any goods, any tax on it, because we can't really tell. If we put it down as a present, then it's up to them, the other end. And it is a present.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe what we'll do is keep in touch, Merle. I don't know if you're still with us or whether you've gone away, because this was, I don't know, quite a while ago when you were asking the questions. So, but stay in touch with the show, and once you've moved over, we'll sort you a present then. Because we don't want you having to pay an enormous amount of import tax for a t-shirt when it actually arrives. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a very nice gift. A lot of these names are ones. Let's give it to Alison. Alison Smith. Are you still with us, Alison? If so, send us your details, contact, get in touch. Actually, get in touch with Chris at Upsticks.
Yeah.
Is it info@upsticks.es? Is that the one?
Yeah, or support. If you email support@upsticks.es and give us your details, we'll sort it out from there.
There you go. Or if you're not there, then or put your details in the comments and I'll get in touch with you there. But not in the live chat, because we'll be off air soon and I'll lose all of those comments. I won't be able to access them. There we go. So, Tony Keller says, am I going to be lucky? And Bev's booking her trip as we speak. There we go. We will meet soon. So, by the way, don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe. I said this earlier, if you haven't already, so you'll be the first to know what's on next week. And in a moment, I'll tell you what's on next Saturday's show. But until then, let's give a massive thank you and a big virtual hug and a kiss to Chris for being so full of answers and fun, as always.
Cheers, guys.
So, are you not back for it's like 3 weeks' time this time, because we've had you on the show twice in a row. So we've had a swap around with guests. So we're all going to miss you. And
we'll have to think of a super duper mega topic for 3 weeks.
Absolutely, we will. So enjoy your time off and enjoy your working weekend. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye. There we go. So on next Saturday's show, I'll be talking to a new friend, somebody new for you. She is a wonderful financial advisor called Lucia Malgarejo, and we'll be talking about your Spanish tax obligations. So what tax you have to pay depending on your circumstances, and how to organise your finances when moving to Spain. Tax and money, those are the two big topics that everybody wants to know about. And so it'll be good to get a new angle on it from somebody also who used to work for Spanish banks. So yeah, very well qualified. She'll be able to help you make the most of your money. So why not ask questions in advance on the YouTooSpain Facebook community? Come and join in with that. Make yourself a member. Oh, Merle is in the UK. Oh, thanks for that, Jason. Well, get in touch with us, Merle. We'll sort something out for you. Thanks to everybody who joined us on the live chat. There were so many names today. Oh, there you sat. There you are. I thought you were in America. I didn't realise. Sorry about that. I'm not casting aspersions. I like Americans too. Thank you to everybody that's joined us on the live chat. And to all of the people watching the video afterwards, big wave to you. You can put comments in the video description below. Don't put them in on the Facebook groups where you've clicked on the video to watch it and then gone back to Facebook, because nobody will get to read those comments. It'll be just me. So put them underneath the video on YouTooSpain's YouTube channel. And Paul Symes says, I checked with the EU and have an email from them that disagrees with what you just said. What in particular are they disagreeing with? Very quickly, Paul, if you can put that down while I'm finishing off the show. Thank you, those people who've bought me a coffee.com by using the link up there. You can hover your phone above that and it takes you to buymeacoffee.com. Next week's show is on the usual time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland, or on the Canary Islands even, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. That's CET, Central European Time. And somebody pass around the truth cookies. Quick with your answer there, Paul. If we've gone by the time that answer comes through, then we'll have to answer it in the comments. So everybody read the comments. Everybody, if you're still here, put something in the comments. It helps other people to get information. Okay. Sorry, Paul, it's not come through yet. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to you all. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace and love to you all. And here's one final message from all of us here at YouTooSpain. Here we go. Bye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.